Then, okay. I did finally update some dates, and let me get my web browser window up. And then share my screen. I have gone ahead and opened the rest of the labs. And the 23rd, 6 and 7, the 23rd. Oh, I hadn't actually hit the share button, had I? Okay. I did that earlier today too, and I'm not seeing your screen. Okay. 6 and 7 are due the 23rd. 8 and 9 are due April 30th, and the project will be due May 4th. What I want everybody to do, and I'll put this out in an email as well. I know some of you are limited on disk space and may not be able to do all of the labs. Do what you can and document what you can. If you can't physically do them, document what you can on them. Just on those, do your best. I think 6 and 7 you can probably do with no problem. 8 and 9, the idea was you would have your infrastructure with multiple VMs. As long as you've got one VM running, you can actually do it, and you just won't be able to implement everything. You can create, either 7 or 8 is creating sites. I think, or I'm sorry, 8 and 9. I think 8 is creating sites. You can actually create your sites with a single domain controller. You just can't implement the sites, and that's okay, as long as you know what it is you're supposed to be doing on those. I have posted the project, and again, in that, you do what you can. You won't, I don't think anybody will be able to implement the entire infrastructure. You probably will only be able at best do 2 servers. Now, here is the alternative to the project that I'm working on. And those of you that want to participate, and an email will go out about this tomorrow as well. The alternate is to actually work on the design document for the infrastructure for the new building. I was told today by the dean that he was told that the Cisco gear has been ordered. He cannot verify it. He was told by the vice president that's in charge of the finance that it had been ordered. We think that it was ordered out of Nashville. We're not sure it was ordered from our preferred vendor. We don't have a delivery date. But if it has been ordered, it should be in plenty of time to still get it installed in the new building, assuming we get in the new building on time. He did not give us any updates on when we'll be able to do that. I will probably, once we can get in the new building, assuming all the gear's there, I'll probably be spending some time this summer on my own time trying to get everything running. I'll have Chelsea because she'll be working. Hopefully, again, we'll be actually to come back on campus. I was told today that where we were supposed to be able to come back and get into our offices on Monday, that's not going to happen. That starting sometime next week, if you need to get into your office or into the lab, you have to make arrangements with security, and they're only letting one person in the building at a time. They're going, I really think, too far with this. So hopefully next week, I've got to get, there's some things I need to get for getting ready for fall and some other things I need to get in the building for. If you want to work in groups, and some people can do just the standard project, and others that may want to work on the new building, we can work on it. If we've got most of everybody wanting to work on the new building, what I'm going to suggest is we divide into teams doing different things. One team actually more designing the network addressing, the Cisco side of it. I know this is an Active Directory class, but that's okay. Another team looking at the VMware side of it, and a third team looking at building the pods, so that if we had that for this class, you would be able to you would be assigned a pod with your 10 virtual machines already installed, and then you would just be able to configure them and all. And I think that would actually be a very good project. I've got a basic layout, but I probably won't interfere too much in what you guys want to do, and then I'll tell you things that won't work. So, you know, that's the alternative to the project, is to work on it. I know we won't be able to finish anything. I know we won't be able to get into the building to plug in those servers and actually put anything together. I am hoping we can get into the building now in July. Because if I can't get in the building till the 1st of August, we're going to have a lot of problems this fall. And the dean did tell them in the meeting that it is going to take time to get those 5 labs up and running that we're building. So essentially, that is what I've got. Again, I have opened up those labs. You just do what you can, and if you can't do it, tell me what you would do on them. I can pretty much face it. This whole class, more than likely, if nothing had changed, the lowest grade in the class would have been a B, and I think everybody in the class was going to get an A anyway, and it probably will still be that way. If you don't turn in things, it won't, but so we're you know, either way you want to think about on the project, and the email I'll send out tomorrow about it will basically say, let me know by Monday or Tuesday of next week which way you want to go for the project. Either way, it's quite a bit of work. The actual project, the design document has essentially 10 machines showing, but you were never going to build all 10. If we'd been still in the lab, you would probably build about 4 servers and 1 or 2 Windows workstations. From home, I think 2 servers are all you're going to be able to do. So, any questions about that?
Are they still working on the new building at all?
My understanding is they are. I don't know if they have cut down their crew size and slowed down. I might find that out tomorrow. We've got a division meeting tomorrow through Zoom, and I might find out tomorrow something about that. But as of now, my understanding is that construction crew is still working. If they're not, we won't be in the building. But I was told that they are going to be, also told last week, they're going to be starting demolition on the T buildings within the next month. If they start demolishing the T buildings, we have to be in the fall into that building, because where's manufacturing going to go? So I assume if they're going to be starting destruction of those buildings, they're already moving equipment out. And yeah, I'll hopefully find out more tomorrow. So the 1 or 2 of you in the class that are still going to be here in the fall, you may get to see the new building in operation. Anything else? Any questions? That's my intro. Everybody's awful quiet. Okay. Last week, I had talked a little bit about group policy, and we looked at a couple of things. Let me real quickly show you a couple of things if you want. It's not shroop policy, it's group. One thing I have noticed, and it may just be me, is it seems to me like VirtualBox is actually a little bit faster than VMware Workstation. So I don't know, that might be just me, but we'll see. It could be this machine too. Even though this machine's fairly old, it's a pretty beefy machine. Okay, I've created a couple of organizational units, and again, to create one here in the group policy, if I right click and I can just create a policy, and well, I've created a couple. Here's one that's a password policy. If I right click and edit, it will bring the group policy editor, and I think we looked at it real quick last week. And since this was a password policy, we've got it divided into the computer and user configurations. I never create a policy. I won't say never. I avoid creating a policy with settings both from the computer configuration side and the user configuration side. The reason for that is computer side configuration policies are applied when the computer boots, user side when the user logs in. So I don't like to mix and match those. Some people will. I'm going to click on security settings, and in this case, the two things I set were account policies and local policies. So if I double click on the account policies, I've got password, lockout, and Kerberos. And the password policies where I can set things like that complex password that nobody can get right because they forget the special characters and all. History. How many passwords do you have times you have to change your password before you can reuse one? How long before you have to change it? How quickly can you change it? Those are the kinds of things there. And so here, my history in this policy that I created is 10 passwords, 90-day age. You can change it immediately. A lot of people will set that where you have to cannot change it at least for 1 day. That prevents somebody from changing it 10 times in a row real fast to go back to their original policy. When you go into those, a lot of them are either turned on or turned off, defined or enabled, and then possibly a value. And that's what these typically are. In the case of the complexity, it's either an on or off. And there are, again, thousands of these. The lockout policy, things like, okay, how long after you get locked out before you can log back in unless an administrator resets you? How many bad password attempts before you get locked out? I like 5 bad attempts in a 30 and reset the counter after 30 minutes. So you do 3 bad ones, wait a half hour, you can do 3 bad ones again. But if you do 5 bad ones in a 30-minute time frame, that would lock you out, and that makes it difficult for brute force attacks. And that's just on the password side. If I come down under the administrative templates and go to all settings, I get everything, and that's where there's somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 of these settings. But I can do things like a control panel, networks, server, start menu. So I can control a lot there. Now this was a password policy, so I probably wouldn't do anything under the user, but I'll open that up and say under, it's actually under administrative templates. I've got control panel settings. I can control things like add, remove programs. So I can hide things on it. I could remove the add, remove programs from them. Under display, I've got some controls over the display panel. The desktop, I can remove the computer icon from the desktop. I can remove the My Documents, recycle bin. So there's a lot of things I can do that way. Some of those have a little bit more detail. Let's see. See if this is one. Okay, yeah. This one, the enable screensaver, not configured, lets it use the defaults. If I enable it, I can set some options so that the screensavers don't run in things. You can pretty much completely control a user's desktop and a user experience. A lot of kiosks get rid of the run. They can't do run. Maybe they can't change the start menu. Things like that. They can't install programs. They can't get to the add, remove programs. Those are the kinds of things that are done in a lot of networks. If you're in a call center, and okay, I don't think anybody in here works at a call center. If you're in a call center, usually those machines are locked down because when you get off your shift, somebody else comes in and takes over. So those are the settings. Anything that you think you might want to configure probably can be configured there. Internet Explorer settings. I can go in and set all kinds of things on Internet Explorer. I assume Credge will have them. The Edge UI has some settings. I think, I've not tried this, I think the IE settings that are common in Edge work in both, or set in both. Once they go to Credge, I don't know what happens. I assume there will be something with Credge. If you don't know, Credge is the next version of Edge that's based on Chromium. They're calling it still Edge, but it's based on Chromium, like Chrome, and that's going to be, it is actually available. You can download it now. I have heard that they're going to offer a vertical tabs option in it, and if they do, it could swing me that direction. I don't know, because I wish my tabs were on the left-hand side, showing vertically, but that's me. So all kinds of things. One of the things I do recommend is you read those settings, or read what it says it's doing very carefully. There's one that says disable Control-Alt-Delete. That's the name of it. And when you would think, okay, I want the user to have to do a Control-Alt-Delete, I would enable the Control-Alt-Delete setting. Well, when you enable it, because it's saying disable Control-Alt-Delete, that means the user no longer has to do Control-Alt-Delete. So if you want to force all the workstations to be required to do Control Alt Delete. You want to disable the disable Control Alt Delete. And there's several others that are that way. And if you don't read carefully what they do, I forget, it was probably Windows 2000, certainly Server 2003, if it wasn't Server 2000, when I discovered that. I enabled it and was testing it and could not figure out why I didn't have to do Control Alt Delete. I've gone, I know I set that up, but I set it up backwards because I didn't read it right. So that is part of the group policy management. Any questions there? One of the things you can do with group policy is you can, and I mentioned this last week, you can set up group policy so that you can have it install software. So if I go in here to the software installation and package, then I would find my MSI that I want to install, or they also have a ZAP package, and I don't have one to install here, but you can go in and you can configure it through group policy so that when the user logs into the system, depending on how you configure it, it either installs, or when the icon shows up and when they double click on the icon, it installs. The nice thing about using an MSI package is you can create a transform package with all the custom settings in it. Also, if something happens during the installation, if you're doing it with an MSI package, you can back that out. You can also uninstall through group policy. If you're doing publishing it and you're using a regular, say, EXE or Windows installer, you can't automate all that, and you can't uninstall. You can also, with the MSI package, you can go in with and install updates and upgrades automatically. And in a big operation, you really want to do that. I don't know if any of you have worked for a company where you've had to go around with a thumb drive or a CD and install software on a bunch of machines. If you can get it, if it's in an MSI Windows installer package, you can again automate that, and the user doesn't have to intervene, and you don't have to go to those machines. You can.
Do they have that set up in the labs at Northeast?
To the best of my knowledge, they do not. They image. This is one of the things in our new labs we would like to be able to do for the software that has MSI. Microsoft Office has it, and there are a number of other things. So in the new labs, where we can do that, we'd like to. What they're doing, to the best of my knowledge, in most of the labs is they have an image and they're pushing out the entire operating system image. That's another thing that we want to have set up in our new labs, is an imaging server, so that if we have to re-image a machine, right now we're going around, take a external hard drive and going around to the machine we have to re-image and copying the image off of an external hard drive. And we would like to get away from doing that.
Is that set up in the CITC domain though?
Is which setup?
The auto installation.
No, we have auto updates for Windows and Microsoft products. We have a Windows update server, or WUS server, but for publishing packages, we've never gotten that set up. I have never had a lab tech before. Chelsea's really going to be my first is actually our first true lab tech. And usually by the time we would get a student worker to where they would be able to figure out how to set it up, they're gone. So that's one of the things that we want to set up. And I've wanted to do it, but it's time consuming and just finding the time. We also have wanted to set up that deployment server so we could image out. And Mr. Anderson had said he would do it, and then he just never finds time either. So that's been a problem. When we hire the new faculty member for the grant, that's also something that new faculty member, part of their duties will be to help set up that. I don't have a date when that new faculty member will be hired. We interviewed and made our choice, but I do not know, with all this going on, what kind of delay in hiring that new faculty member may happen.
Yeah.
So the software installation, that's real good. And by using group policy with it, I can actually control and not send it out to everybody. I can assign that group policy that deploys that software to departments at a time, and I can control that deployment to some degree. I can also go in and with my settings, I can filter who gets it. So I can add a filter and only push it out to certain groups or certain organizational units. And I can control that. So once I've got it pushed out, say, to all the accounting people one day, I push out that software update to engineering the next. And that would make a softer install. Instead of sending it out at Eastman to 10,000 computers, we send it out to a couple of hundred at a time. And that reduces your network bandwidth and all greatly. The other thing that you can do, as far as how you push it out, is you can create what are called Wmi filters. I don't have any set up right now, but Wmi is the Windows management interface, and I can go in and I can set a filter up that will only install this, say, on a machine that has 8 gigs of RAM. Say the software needs 8 gigs of RAM. So it will only install on machines with 8 gigs of RAM. Or maybe I don't want to install it on a machine whose C drive has less than 100 gigs of disk space. Maybe it needs a certain level of processor. Through setting up Wmi filters, it can go out, it will look at the machine it's trying to install on, and if the machine doesn't meet the installation criteria, it will not install. Now, I have played with that a little bit, and I am by no means someone who is good at setting the Wmi filters up. What I have found is I Google, download a filter settings that is close, and then modify it. Trying to create the filter from scratch is just more work and knowledge than I directly have. I can edit an existing filter, but to create a filter to get it the way I want from scratch is just not something I can do. I don't do it often enough. I do it maybe once a year, but again, you could go in here and based on the actual computer, RAM, disk processor, things like that, you can control who does and doesn't get it. That way, if it tries to install on a machine without enough RAM, it just won't do it. Right. Other questions? Or I've got a couple of videos on group policy that should be, I hope to finish editing. I thought I would have them finished editing before tonight, but it's just been a busy week. I've been trying to advise amongst other things. By the way, those of you that may need to take a summer class, all summer classes are now online, totally online. There are no in-person summer classes. I think manufacturing may have some classes. The lecture is online, and they're going to make arrangements to do the labs in person with very small groups. But all other classes that are offered, your English, your history, humanities, all those are 100% online now. The last thing I'll talk about tonight, unless there are other questions, is there's two tools that'll help you. There's a group policy modeling tool and a group policy results tool. And those essentially will let us go in and build a model to see what's going to be applied. I've got a couple here. Let me get rid of this, actually this OU1 on computers, I think, and create one. And it's got a wizard, goes through and says, okay, I've only got the one domain, so that's the only domain. What do I want to check the settings on? So I'm going to check the settings on not a user. I could go to a user, but an OU. And I'm going to check container. And right now I'm going to do the container for the computer side on the same OU. And then I'll do it with the on the computer side on a different one. And I'm just going to accept all the defaults here. And it tells me at the top some summary information. But if I look at these settings, I can come in here and see what the account password policies. And it says the 10-day, 90 days, 1 day, those things that I had set. So I can see after it has applied the domain level policy, the site level policy, and all the OU policies, I see all of the things that were applied. And I can scroll down, and it could be a long list if there were a lot of policies. The lockout, the Kerberos policy, any network access. And it tells me here where it got that policy. So for example, and I know it's probably hard to see, but this network access is from the default domain policy. But the password history was from the password policy. So I can see where they were applied, and if I'm getting strange results or unexpected results, I can look and say, well, that may be why. I've got another one that I did earlier, and this one for the computers, I use the computers folder container instead of the password container. So even though the OU for the user is OU1, the OU for that it's applied for the computer is going to be the default domain. So there I've got the 24 passwords remembered, and change your password every 42 days. So using this modeling tool with either individual users or organizational units, you can see what policies are going to be applied. And this is a good troubleshooting tool if you're having issues with a policy. The group policy results are similar, and I already had built a query, but it's more of a higher level settings. it shows more detail on it. So it says, okay, for this default domain controller policy, because this machine I ran it on was a domain controller, access the computer from this network. These are who can do it, the users that can do it. Allow log on locally. Administrators back up these. So actually authenticated users, unless they're an administrator, could not log on to this domain controller. So you see, it gives you a little different information. Again, it's a great troubleshooting tool to see what is happening on your computer and what policies are being applied to different computers and users. So those are a couple of troubleshooting tools. It also can be used for documenting. This is actually an HTML web page. So, and you can either print it or save it. And if I do a save, eventually it should come up and ask me how I want to save it. And the file type is an HTML. I can also save it as an XML if I wanted to bring it into some other program for parsing. So I've got the ability to, again, save these reports and then use them later, bring them into other software and all. Okay, questions on group policy? We are pretty much finished all the required stuff for the course. Normally about the last 3 weeks is pretty much devoted to working on projects. There may be a couple of other little things I need to look at. I need to go through and see if there's anything we missed. Usually this is the end of the lecture for this class, and then you start working on the projects. If we're in the lab and building the projects from scratch, because you would be building about 5 or 6 virtual machines and doing all the configuration. It usually takes about 3 weeks to do it. Everything, again, all the assignments are out there. I will be available. I'll still be here on Thursday nights just to answer questions. I'll email if there's any new material that we need to cover for everybody. And again, I'll try to record these, although I have a feeling I didn't start recording tonight, and I didn't. So this one didn't get recorded, but everything we talked about is in videos that I've posted or will post in the next day or two. I need to give myself a big sticky note on it. This is the first time I've forgotten to turn on recording for all the classes, so that's probably for me good. Okay, any other questions?
Bueller.
Huh?
I do have one question in regards to, I guess, summer registration.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm actually going to be graduating this spring. However, I want to come back and take English Comp 2 prior to transferring out to the Cumberlands.
Okay.
So what do I need to do to make sure that I can still take a course during the summer?
All right. You're not on financial, you're going to use financial aid, right?
I'll pay out of pocket.
Pay out of pocket. As far as I know, if you just register, you're fine.
Okay.
To the best of my knowledge is all you have to do is go ahead and register. There's nothing, no hold. There's a lot of people that have applied that apply for graduation and still have to take a class or two in the summer, but they want to walk in the fall. So to the best of my knowledge, just go up and sign up for the course. If you have any problems with it, let me know and I'll check with financial aid or admissions rather.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Others? I guess if that's it, then we'll go ahead and break. I may try and re-record some of what